Well, that's certainly what the Weather Service is telling us, but my biggest concern is that folks, because of this current track, might not be taking this storm as seriously as they should. What we know is historically a third of these storms make landfall outside of the cone. And so we need to be prepared. The other thing is this storm is going to hit at night when things are exponentially more difficult, both for first responders and for people who have to deal with the impacts of the storm. We do expect tidal flooding because of storm surge, and on the east side of the storm especially, there's going to be significant rainfall, relatively intense for at least a short duration. And so this is a serious storm, and even though it's moving very quickly right now, the forward speed is somewhere around 21, 22 miles per hour. It is over very warm water in the Gulf, and it's drawing strength from that warm water, so it's strengthening. And they tell us to expect what's forecasted, which is a solid Category 1 storm, but we need to plan for a +1, which means we need to plan for a Category 2. And so that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to make sure everyone remains focused.
And Governor, ahead of the storm, you requested federal disaster assistance. I understand you got some good news overnight from the White House.
We did. The president signed the pre-landfall declaration that we requested for 17 parishes. And more than that, early this morning, I was able to speak directly with the president. He called to speak with me to make sure that he knew that we had the full assistance of the federal government at our disposal. And of course, I've had regular contact with FEMA Administrator Brock Long, but also Tom Bossert, who is the Homeland Security Advisor to the President. So we feel good about the coordination. One thing I want folks in Louisiana to understand is that FEMA has redeployed their personnel and their assets following Harvey. So we have the assistance that we need. I don't want people thinking that they're all strung out over Texas and so forth. We have the assistance that we need. We feel really good about it. We just want people to be where they need to be by 8 o'clock tonight. Wherever they're going to ride the storm out, that's where they need to be, and they need to be in the appropriate posture. And of course, to helping with some of this, we've got some curfews out there, which Mayor Landrieu, as you all know, has a curfew in New Orleans for 7 p.m., and I think that's going to be very helpful.
And you have a presser coming up at noon, I believe. What are you going to be monitoring up until then, and what items will be on the docket for that?
Well, obviously, we will have another update from the National Weather Service, but we will be getting reports from the parishes about particular concerns that they have, and we will have a unified command group meeting here at my governor's office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness shortly, and then we will come out after that with the benefit of the information that we have at that meeting, and we'll have that press conference, and that will be probably the last major press conference before landfall. So we want to get that one right and make sure that we're sharing all of the relevant and pertinent information.
And what resources have you deployed across the state or across southeast Louisiana? Well,
we have about 1,300 National Guardsmen who are mobilized, and they are pre-positioned with high water vehicles and boats. The wildlife and fisheries agents are pre-positioned with boats and trucks. We've got fire marshal's office, you name it. The state police is out there monitoring roadways because we know we've got roadways that were already underwater 2 days ago because of a east wind that had been blowing in here and just blowing in more water than normal, and that's ahead of the storm. And of course, they're accompanied by DOT personnel, transportation personnel, so that we can mark roads closed as quickly as we can identify those. And I would remind everybody that in storms like this, the most dangerous activity is driving through water when you don't know how deep it is or how fast the current is moving. And it's especially hard at night to gauge the water depth and the current, which is why we're asking people not to be out overnight. If you're in these parishes that are going to be affected by this storm, not to be out overnight, endangering yourself, but then also endangering the life of first responders who might have to try to come out and render assistance. It just didn't worth it.
Governor, you mentioned the National Guard soldiers. Tell us about those who will be deployed here in New Orleans, helping us out with our pumps.
Well, this is a mission that we actually had previously for Harvey as well, because there was actually more vulnerability at that time than there is now. But we asked the city of New Orleans what they would like from us as it related to the pumps, and they just said that they wanted more eyes on the pumps to make sure that if there was a problem that in real time they got that information and could respond faster. And so back during Harvey, we actually rehearsed this. We have 15 National Guardsmen with vehicles and with radios and telephones, and they'll be keeping eyes on those pumps. But at this point in time, while I can't say, and I don't think the city is saying that they're 100%, we know that the capacity to pump water in New Orleans is better than it has been in many months, and perhaps even in the last couple of years. And it's also much improved when it comes to generating the electricity necessary to run those pumps. And based on the forecast of the rain that we can expect, we do not anticipate any major flooding in New Orleans. But then again, you never know exactly what Mother Nature is going to throw at you. You have to be cautious, and that's one of the reasons that we're going to have those National Guardsmen in New Orleans watching the pumps.
And Governor, what advice do you have for people? You've said that if you need to be where you want to be by 8 o'clock tonight. Yeah, well, this storm is moving very quickly. It's over the Central Gulf right now. Its forward speed is 21, 22 miles per hour. So it's going to close on Louisiana very quickly. And it's scheduled to hit somewhere around midnight to 1 a.m. And so we want people to be wherever they need to be to ride this storm out by dark tonight. It's just, things are always harder, more difficult, more dangerous at night. And so we're asking people to take that into consideration and make sure that they're prepared come dark.
And Governor, are you in communication with the folks over in Mississippi? I presume you are too. We're not sure which of us is going to get hit, but right now it looks like Mississippi in terms of helping them out afterwards.
Yes, well, we are. I will tell you that we have a very good network. The director of the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness for Louisiana, Colonel Jim Wascom, he's in frequent contact with all of our neighboring governor's offices of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness and their directors. I talk frequently with governors, so we're in really good shape right now as it comes to coordination and communication. And clearly, every time they move the track east, it makes it more likely that our neighbors in Mississippi, perhaps Alabama, get a direct hit, not us. But I will remind you what I said to begin with. Fully 1/3 of these storms make landfall outside of the cone. And so we cannot take for granted that forecasted track is what we're going to see happen overnight.
And we are looking at live pictures now of sandbags people preparing sandbags in Mississippi right now. Governor, you are satisfied that we are going to have all the federal assistance we're going to need, people who are going to find themselves in a situation where they need to repair their homes? Yes, I'm absolutely satisfied that will happen. We just need people to be prepared right now for the immediate impact, and we will deal with the recovery once we get to that stage. Right now, this is about protecting lives primarily, property to the maximum degree possible, and then if the storm deals us a significant amount of damage, we'll transition into the recovery later. We won't. So I don't want anybody worried about the recovery. We're gonna have what we need. We just need to be prepared right now to posture ourselves so that we minimize any loss of life or property. And what was your conversation like with President Trump? Well, he called to make sure that I knew that he was paying attention to Louisiana and that he was getting frequent updates on the weather and on the situation on the ground from FEMA and his Homeland Security advisor. He asked me whether I knew of any need that we had from the federal government that was unmet, and I told him no, and I was able to thank him for quickly signing that pre-landfall declaration that we requested. And so we had a very nice conversation about those things, and he
told me to make sure that I called him back if anything developed that I thought needed to be brought to his attention, any request for assistance or any information that he needed to know. And so I told him thank you very much. You know, I appreciated that opportunity to speak to the president this morning. I think that happened around 7:15 our time.
And the president just tweeted, I'll read it, our great team at FEMA is prepared for Hurricane Nate. Everyone in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, please listen to your local authorities and be safe. That from President Trump just a moment ago. Governor, is there any question we haven't thought to ask you, but that you want to make sure that you convey to your constituents?
You know, I don't know of anything that you haven't asked, but if individuals out there, as this storm closes in on us and the storm surge builds and we potentially get a significant amount of rainfall, I would encourage them to check on the road conditions for closures and flooding and that sort of stuff, and they can go to 511la.org, 511la.org online, and that's real time. We just don't want people out there driving through standing water because we know that presents a real hazard to themselves and to people who would be first responders, especially if they do that at night, which is the whole focus on our efforts today are getting people prepared for this storm, having them where they want to be and in the proper posture at 8 o'clock tonight at the latest.
Well, Governor John Bel Edwards, we thank you very much for joining us, and your news conference at noon we will be carrying live.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have breaking news we want to share.